He told me his name, that's all. No story, no backstory. Just a name, spoken like punctuation in a language I hadn't learned yet. And still, 3 years later, I find myself thinking about him. Not because of what he said, but because of everything he didn't. Why do we hold on to the people who leave us with questions? Why does a half glance in a crowded room linger longer than 1,000 perfectly crafted sentences? It's not random, it's not weakness, it's how the human mind is wired. Psychologists call it the Zeigarnik effect. When something is left unfinished, an interrupted sentence, an unresolved goodbye, it loops inside our minds, like a melody that never reaches its final note. We chase it, revisit it, rewrite it in our heads. Maybe you felt it. Someone says, "We need to talk," and then they never do. A message arrives and stops mid-thought. A first date ends on a cliffhanger, and suddenly your mind won't let it go. That's not just curiosity, that's mystery doing its work. Mystery holds attention longer than truth. Because truth has an ending, mystery doesn't. We fall in love with tension, with wonder, with the echo of meaning that hasn't yet arrived. The most magnetic people we encounter don't explain themselves, they leave space. They create gaps, and those gaps become mirrors, reflecting our hopes, our fears, our longing to know something we can't quite name. Mystery doesn't announce itself. It invites you to lean closer. The loudest person in the room is forgotten by morning. But the one who left mid-conversation, the one who smiled and never said why, the one who seemed like a chapter torn from the middle of a novel, you remember them. Mystery doesn't beg to be seen. It makes you want to see it. It turns restraint into presence, silence into gravity. The absence becomes louder than the noise. This isn't about performance, it's about power. In a world obsessed with storytelling, the people who refuse to tell the whole story become the ones we never stop listening for. And by the end of this, you won't just understand why, you'll know how to become one of them. Chapter 2. Scheherazada's secret. She should have died the first night. That was the rule. One wife, one night. One execution at dawn. But Scheherazade knew something the king didn't. She knew that the most powerful thing in the world is a story left unfinished. So she told him tales, wild, rich, layered stories, but just before the climax, just before the mystery resolved, she stopped. Always stopped. And he spared her life. One more night, one more story. Not because he loved her, but because he couldn't bear not knowing what came next. That's the ancient magic of mystery. It doesn't need to shout, it just needs to stop at the right moment. We think we need to be impressive to be remembered. We don't. We need to leave space. This isn't some old myth locked in time. You've seen it, you've felt it. The quiet person at the party who says almost nothing but leaves you wondering all week. The person who looks at you like they know more than they say, then disappears. The ones you can't stop thinking about are rarely the ones who overshare. They're the ones who make you imagine, because mystery is more than withholding. It's co-creation. When someone leaves room, your mind rushes in to build the missing pieces, and now you're not just remembering them, you're projecting yourself, your story, your dreams, your secret longings. It becomes personal, intimate, even addictive. There's a lesser-known legend from North Africa. A princess named Guthia walked veiled through the city, speaking to no one. Her face had never been seen. But one day, a wandering dervish caught the briefest glimpse of her smile and unraveled. He stopped eating, stopped sleeping. He walked the streets like a man haunted, not by what he saw, but by what he imagined he saw. He fell in love with the space she left open. Mystery is not emptiness. It's emotional combustion. It's silence that demands attention. It's presence that doesn't explain itself. And that's why we never forget it. The people we obsess over are the ones we never finished reading. They're the books without final chapters. The sentences that end mid-thought. The ones who never answered our last question. Mystery doesn't hand itself over, it invites pursuit. And when you understand that, you begin to realize something astonishing. You don't need to be loud to be unforgettable, you just need to know when to disappear. Chapter 3. The mirror of projection. I once thought I was in love with someone I barely knew. She didn't speak much, never told me her story, but the way she looked at the world quietly, like she was always listening to something deeper, I filled in everything she never said. I made her wise, tragic, brilliant, all in my head. And when she left, I realized I wasn't mourning her. I was mourning the version of myself I saw when I was near her. That's what mystery does. We say we're drawn to people because they're intriguing, but often it's because they reflect something inside us, something we can't access on our own. And the less they reveal, the more we imagine. Carl Jung once wrote, "Projections change the world into the replica of one's own unknown face." That isn't metaphor, it's a mirror. When someone withholds, they don't just become mysterious, they become a screen for your longing, your fear, your forgotten potential. We fall for people who leave us unfinished because they let us finish the story ourselves. The quiet stranger, the artist who leaves their work unsigned, the person who gives you a glance that lingers longer than any compliment ever could. They don't hand you their soul. They let you find your own inside their silence. That's why mystery feels so intimate, because it gives space for recognition, not of them, of you. And when you lose that person, it stings deeper, not because they were everything, but because in them you saw something in yourself you hadn't touched in years. Mystery isn't just magnetism, it's emotional co-creation. It's a gap that invites you to step into it. And that step becomes a revelation. Einstein called mystery the source of all true art and science. John O'Donohue spoke of it as a threshold of the soul. In Japanese aesthetics, Jungian captures a feeling too deep for words, a presence that hovers just beyond the reach of the intellect, but lands fully in the heart. The people who haunt you didn't explain themselves. They left something open, and your imagination walked through. You weren't supposed to understand them. You were supposed to remember how you felt in their presence, and maybe remember who you were before you explained yourself to death. So if someone left you wondering, don't rush to close that loop, because sometimes what we call obsession is really the echo of a part of ourselves reaching out from someone else's mystery. And what you saw in them, maybe that's who you've always been, just waiting for a mirror that didn't speak too loudly. Chapter 4. The Age of Overexposure. There's a man I follow on social media. He never shows his face, doesn't share quotes or updates or his morning coffee, just quiet images, fog rolling over a forest, a candle burning in an empty room, rain slipping down a train window, no captions, no voice, and still, every post feels like a secret. I don't know who he is, but I feel something when I see his silence show up on my screen. Because in a world that overshares, restraint feels like intimacy. We've confused visibility with connection. We think that by showing everything, our meals, our wounds, our morning faces, we become more real, more understood. But there's a cost. When everything is said, nothing feels sacred. We drown each other in detail and then wonder why no one feels moved. Psychologists have a name for it, floodlighting. Brené Brown describes it as a misuse of vulnerability. When we open up too fast, too fully, and throw our truths at people before trust is earned, it overwhelms instead of invites. And instead of closeness, we feel more alone. Mystery knows better. Mystery doesn't rush to explain. It doesn't trade presence for performance. It waits, it holds, it reveals slowly. Not to create distance, but to create meaning. And strangely, those who share less often feel the most present. Not because they're hiding, but because they're protecting, because they understand that some parts of the soul aren't meant to be uploaded or captioned. You've felt this, you've posted something personal, it gets attention, but afterward you feel emptier, because attention isn't intimacy, and exposure isn't presence. The more we give away, the less we're remembered. The louder we get, the less people listen. But then someone walks in who says almost nothing, who doesn't explain themselves, who isn't interested in the performance. And suddenly the room shifts, because silence, when it's true, holds more weight than noise ever could. Mystery isn't about being invisible, it's about being unforgettable without shouting. And in the age of oversharing, choosing what to withhold isn't just power, it's art. So be the one who speaks with pauses, who holds something sacred, who knows that not everything real needs to be revealed to be felt. The people who last are not the ones who told us everything, they're the ones who left something unsaid. And that silence, that space, becomes the place we keep them. Chapter 5. The discipline of mystery. Mystery isn't an accident, it's a discipline. It takes restraint to leave a silence unfilled, to resist the urge to explain yourself, to prove your worth, to fill the space with noise just so you won't be misunderstood. Mystery is not about withholding out of fear, it's about holding back from a place of strength. We mistake mystery for performance, but it's the opposite. It doesn't act, it abides. It doesn't inflate itself to be seen. It stays still and lets the room come to it. The most magnetic people you've met, the ones who linger in your thoughts, who shift the air just by entering it, rarely speak more than they have to. They don't chase admiration, they let curiosity come to them. There was a woman I met once, older, quiet, dressed in simple black. She ran a bookstore, never told stories about herself, never offered small talk, but the way she paused before answering a question made you lean in. She made silence feel like it knew something. You left her presence not understanding her, but wanting to. She wasn't trying to impress. She was embodying something deeper, the art of timing. In storytelling, timing is everything. The pause before a reveal, the withheld detail, the suspense of not knowing what comes next. The best stories breathe, and so do the people who live like them. Mystery isn't vague, it's precise. It knows exactly how much to say and what to leave untouched. It doesn't overshare, it doesn't fill in every blank, because it knows the most powerful connection isn't built through information, it's built through tension, through suggestion, through contrast. Mystery is knowing when to speak and when to leave space. It's choosing silence, not because you have nothing to say, but because you know not everything needs to be said. It's the presence that enters a room without trying to own it. The gaze that looks through you, not at you. The story that never reaches its final line and somehow becomes more whole because of it. Mystery is a kind of generosity. It leaves room for the other person's imagination. It doesn't steal all the air in the room. It lets them bring their own meaning to the moment. It's not about seduction, it's about sovereignty. Mystery doesn't compete. It doesn't convince. It simply is. And in that quiet self-possession, something extraordinary happens. You stop needing attention. You become attention, not because you demand it, but because you remind people of something they didn't know they missed, a feeling, a presence, a way of being that doesn't scream to be seen, and once they've felt that, they never forget it. Chapter 6. I am a mystery. You were never meant to be an open book. You were meant to be a poem, one that doesn't rhyme the first time, one that people carry with them long after they close the page, still repeating its lines in their mind, wondering what it meant. In a world obsessed with branding, clarity, and personal storytelling, being mysterious isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You are not here to be consumed. You are here to be experienced, and the deepest experiences don't happen through explanation. They happen through presence. You've been told to be authentic, but no one tells you this part. Authenticity doesn't mean exposure, it means truth, and truth doesn't always come with a caption. The world wants fast answers. Mystery invites deeper questions. The world says, be visible. Mystery says, be felt. Mystery isn't hiding, it's choosing what deserves the light, because not everything sacred needs to be shared to be real. Some parts of you are meant to be witnessed slowly, like a sunrise through fog. Some truths aren't meant for everyone. They're meant for the few who are still enough to listen without needing a conclusion. And maybe that's why you felt so out of place. Maybe your silence wasn't emptiness. Maybe it was your signal, your refusal to flatten your depth into content, your quiet rebellion against a world that turned identity into performance. So if you've ever felt unseen because you didn't shout, because you didn't explain, because you chose presence over spectacle, Know this, you are not too much, you are too real, and the world is only just learning how to feel something that doesn't announce itself. If there's someone who once stirred you by what they didn't say, someone who shifted your life just by being hard to define, write it, leave their name or just the feeling they left you with. Or say the words that might be the truest thing you've ever spoken. I am a mystery. Let it echo, because the ones we never forget were never the ones who told us everything. They were the ones who gave us just enough to remember forever.